Victor Susskind, a brilliant physicist and leader of the biggest scientific project, who lives with his wife Natalie and daughter Jessica, is woken up by a phone call from a former colleague, Gordon Stewart. He is a former colleague who has lost his job recently. Running late for his work, he drops his wife and kid at a cafeteria. He drives off to work after apologizing to his daughter as he was about to miss her birthday program at her school, but he promises his daughter to be at her soccer game. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, a paranoid Gordon leaves a voicemail to Victor telling him that he is being followed and he has sent a file to him. As soon as he hangs up the phone, he is then struck on his leg with a tip on an umbrella by a professional assassin who seems to be passing by. He immediately collapses to the ground and dies. Victor then meets with Leo Tarski, his partner and financier of the project, to prepare for an interview with a TV channel. The interview consisted of questions about the use of unprecedented energy levels, the risks involved in the project, and concerns expressed on the huge project cost, since around 80% was being covered by the United States. In response to these questions, Leo assures the public that nothing will go wrong since they have the best minds from all over the world working on this project. Meanwhile, Victor admits there is risk involved, but underlines the safeguards placed to shut it down at a moment's notice. After the interview, Victor and Leo have a little chat before the big event, and the issue of Gordon Stewart comes up. A suspicious Leo starts to ask Victor about Gordon, but Victor told him he didn't pick up his phone call or answer his email. The main event of the day starts up the collider on a test run. However, another physicist, Emily Roberts, notices a calibration issue with the atomic clocks. There was an increasing time shift detected. Victor immediately calls Leo and suggests they should shut it down until they fix the problem, but Leo insists they figure it out. He points out that restarting the program will cost millions of dollars. Before they could investigate the problem, the collider exploded, creating devastation in the area. As a result of the explosion, Victor wakes up in an alternate reality of time where the whole city has been destroyed by natural disasters, and tornadoes and burning fires are regularly occurring incidents. In this reality, he is divorced from his wife and his daughter has died in a car accident. But Victor has no idea about what happened. Then he gets a call from his friend and colleague, Chuck. In the middle of their conversation, he gets confused when Chuck tells him a joke about his ex-wife. On their way to work, he tries to call Natalie, but he gets a message from the operator telling him that the number he called is not in service. To add to his confusion, he passes by the place where his house used to be in the original reality, but the place is destroyed. He asks Chuck about the house, but Chuck's answer leaves him more confused. He gets back to the car and they leave for work. After he arrives at work, he notices that the office is still the same place and he still works with Chuck on the Zero Point Collider project. He then suddenly gets a phone call from Natalie, his ex-wife. She tells him she is in jail and he goes to bail her out. In a conversation with one of the officers at the jail, he learns that his daughter died 3 years ago in a car accident and that he blamed Natalie for the death of Jessica and left her. Since then, his wife has been repeatedly jailed because of being drunk and disorderly conduct. This leaves him flooded with a lot of emotions. As they were leaving the station, Victor tried to talk to Natalie about their daughter, but a tornado hit the area, driving them to an underground shelter. In the shelter, he recognizes a familiar face, Emily. He asks her what happened, but Emily can't give him an answer, as she suffers from memory relapse syndrome. He insists on telling Natalie that Emily knows him and that she was present during the accident, which leads Natalie to believe that Victor suffers from the same disease as Emily. The storm passes and Victor walks Natalie to her home. She tells him to go and see Dr. Frung, a psychological therapist he used to see after the death of their daughter. Although he was reluctant at first, he agreed to see the therapist. The next day, Victor goes to see Dr. Frung. She tells him that he came first to see her 4 years ago after the death of his daughter. He didn't finish his therapy, instead he walked out and didn't come back. But Victor tells her he has no memory of being there. He tries to explain about the collider explosion. She challenges him as a scientist and asks him which one is most likely, the change of the entire world, or there is a hidden trauma he is suffering from. Victor felt like losing his mind. From this short session, Dr. Frung concludes that Victor is in denial of the truth, and he has developed memory relapse syndrome, which has become a coping mechanism for his mind after losing his daughter. She prescribes some medicine to help him get through his day-to-day activities. The next day, Victor is back to work, but he starts having dreams and flashbacks about the events before the collider exploded. He remembers receiving a text from his wife about his daughter's birthday and putting his iPhone down on the desk as he was very busy. He searches and finds the iPhone on one of the computer desks. Chuck confronts him about picking up company material. Despite Chuck's insistence, Victor manages to leave the office with the iPhone. He then goes to a shop to find a charger for it, but the assistant has never heard of an iPhone. He manages to make his own charger from the electrical devices he bought from the assistant. Back in the office, Leo is asking about the phone that Victor took from the office after the camera caught him leaving with it. Leo asks Chuck if Victor has been acting strangely. Chuck tells the truth about Victor. Out of fear of his boss, he agrees to help Leo and takes 2 of his men to Victor's home. These men were tasked to retrieve the phone. Chuck calls Victor and asks him to explain his actions in the office. In the middle of their conversation, Chuck unintentionally tells him Gordon Stewart was found dead in Kiev. Victor checks his iPhone only to find out multiple voice messages sent to him from Gordon. He suspects something is wrong and looks out the window to see the investigators. He manages to quickly escape without being seen. While hiding from the men, he starts to check his phone for the emails from Gordon. Instead, he finds the recording of his daughter's birthday and watches it full of emotions. Victor visits Dr. Frung again. This time he shows her a recording on his iPhone, which was sent from his wife in the original reality 2 days ago. It shows his daughter celebrating her 7th birthday. He desperately tries to convince her using the iPhone and video as evidence. She still doesn't believe him. She insinuates that the video is some sort of a trick, and she is convinced all this is a severe case of memory relapse syndrome resulting from not taking his medicines. In the end, Victor chooses to believe his own reality and leaves the psychiatrist's office. With a series of tornadoes expected to hit the city, Victor tries to find Natalie. He goes over to her house, but the men Leo sent spot him and start to chase him. He hides in one of the houses and then creates an explosion using flammable materials he found in the houses. This temporarily disables the men and escapes them in the storm. After the storm cools down, he finds Natalie in a club. He tries to speak with her, but she refuses. He was forced out by one of her friends, but not before taking out his iPhone and leaving it on the counter for her to watch the video of their daughter. Then Leo's men discover him outside once more and capture him. Leo torments him to find out where the iPhone is, but Victor won't tell him. Leo at that point injects Victor with a chemical that knocks him out. On the next day, Chuck shows up at Victor's home. Victor tries to get Chuck on his side by telling him about his family in the original reality. He tells him about his wife, Susan, and their kid. Chuck is stunned by the fact that Leo knows Susan. She was a girl he went out on a few dates 10 years ago. Chuck then takes the Leo to 0 Point Industries to speak with Leo. After going into the office, he sees that the particles of the 0 Point project are colliding at much higher energy levels than they were designed to initially. This was because Leo tampered with the collider, which in turn caused the explosion and a time shift. Leo tells Victor about the true reason behind the 0 Point project. It was not to create clean and free energy, but rather to use the collider as a time machine to see into the future and predict the stock market. It was all about the money for him. Leo asks Victor to help them perfect the system, but Victor refuses and walks out. Victor goes back to the club to find Natalie. He doesn't find her at first. Instead, he starts a fight unintentionally, and Natalie helps him to escape the place. Outside of the club, Natalie tells him that she has watched the video of their daughter's birthday. She cries and they reconcile with each other. They go to Victor's house and spend the night together. Victor then explains to Natalie about the collider creating an alternate reality. He tells Natalie there is a virus on the phone which can restore everything to normal. Natalie doesn't understand it all, and she believes he is in some sort of delusion. Victor tells her that he is going to fix it and leaves her in an underground club as a huge tornado approaches. Victor goes back to 0 Point Industries to release the virus. He hacks into a computer and downloads the virus, but Chuck and the agents discover him, and one of Leo's men destroys the iPhone. Leo threatens to murder his wife unless he cooperates and helps them perfect the collider. Left with no choice, Victor agrees to cooperate with them. Meanwhile, in the office, Chuck watches the disturbing footage of Victor being bitten by Leo, despite his agreement to cooperate. This compels him to change his mind and help Victor. He glances at the computer to see that the virus has been completely uploaded before the phone was destroyed. Chuck activates the phone virus and rescues Victor by shooting the security guards. However, Chuck himself was shot. He held the gun pointed at Leo, giving Victor enough time to escape. Victor then goes to find Natalie. Victor tried to reach the club as fast as he could, but he was too late. The tornado has hit and destroyed the club. Victor finds her buried under rubble. Victor consoles her by telling her about their daughter's life as she takes her last breath. The virus sent the collider into overdrive, which caused another massive explosion. This explosion sends Victor back to his original reality at his daughter's football match. Everything was back to normal, and Leo Tarski was arrested for stock manipulation. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Watch our next videos on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you on the next one.